Dead air. What can we do? Stop the video. So we're not recorded right now? I don't think so. Okay. Good. I'll assume that we are. Who knows? Yes. One should always presume that it will be recorded. Yes.
The surveillance state.
There's, well, between the security cameras and everybody with an iPhone.
Do anything special over the weekend?
Yeah, we were in Hawaii.
Wow. Which island?
Oahu. We went out to the Stanford game. Stanford game. What's that? Cooking. Okay. Met some friends over there and had a wonderful and short vacation. Right, now just got back on Tuesday.
Game.
The game was great. We won. It's typical that they put us in end zone corner, so it was difficult to see very much. Good morning, Vic. How are you? Good, good.
Good health, I hope. Good.
I think I stopped the video, but we might be recording for this view.
All right, I will be discreet. I used to remember a radio personality in the 1940s, late 1940s, that had a kids show and didn't know he was being recorded, made some nasty comment about the kids, and that was the end of his career.
It is still happening.
Oh, I suspect so.
Open mic, program. Good morning, Bud.
Bud. That much early.
I always get here really late, right? And remember how to clean all the equipment. Last time we were here, they changed it up. Greg managed to get the secret password.
Yeah, I think the sound system has always been a challenge from this room for the
Yeah.
regular meetings as well. Okay.
We should. The only one I am aware of is going to be missing today. Okay. Rob said to me last night, he said he would be here. Oh, really? That's true.
Been picking up this time.
Oh, well. Last night, maybe his plans changed, but
No, I think it was here then. He wasn't going to wake me up in the middle of the night to tell me something.
you're right.
Something like getting a call at 2 a.m. Hey, I'll pick you up this morning. They could have waited.
But the good thing about having a representative,
Very good.
as far as I know, yeah, good. But there's lots of stuff like this. Haven't received information through nothing. People are generally pretty good in letting me know. It could be bad.
Visual intelligence.
Visual intelligence, you're seeing people moving toward this direction.
There we go.
Good morning, Lynn. Welcome, welcome.
A few people have. Welcome.
Yeah, that's great. President has the back, you know, it's much better than mine. Okay, so we are 5 minutes ago, and we are not that far away. It's 7? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, suddenly, here we are. Good morning, Jerry. Good morning, Rob. Good morning.
You came back late last night, huh?
It's okay. It goes. You know how to do that. It depends. Oh, that would be fascinating. Yeah.
I didn't bring stuff for you, which I didn't need.
Yes. Yep.
What about it? Why, I haven't long been, I'm gonna do.
Yeah, that would be great.
No, I know, I don't need it.
That's the only one you know about that. We were just in July.
It's amazing between the hours.
Number one, they thought it was.
Midnight last night. How much stuff comes in? Yeah. Between the garbage and the stuff that really you care about, it's unreal. What was life before? Telephones, right, and first.
I am impressed with this. We are 4 minutes till and we already have a quorum. So good. Why is 7 people? That's a quorum. We have 11 members. That's good. Six will do it. 6 will do it. You are correct. Correct. Oh. No.
Morning.
Good morning, Craig. We have Chuck Nile. You don't get to see him here. I'm just happy. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Oh, that was our venture capitalist.
No, Mary Ann won't be here. What about Randy? I think Ray is in. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Good morning, Randy. Hey, Randy.
Right on time.
Good morning, all. We are going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes and then start our meeting. We do have a quorum here in the schoolhouse this morning.
We've been. Busy. I know, that's the changes of the world, isn't it? Helps and it could help. Very much so. No, no grandchildren. They're so rational.
Okay, good
I have a
morning,
few
all.
radios that I've collected.
Okay, we are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. With roll call first. I am here, Dale Fowles, Lee Neisberg. Craig Heber.
Here.
Mary Ann is absent. Chris, I see you on Zoom. Thank you for attending.
Morning. Dale, could I remind you all to please speak directly into the microphone so we can hear you on Zoom?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I will speak much clearer. Okay, Ray Rothrock is not here yet. Jerry Shepron. Vic Schachter is here. Bud Trapp
Here.
here. Rob Young here. And Randy True is here. So great. Thank you all for attending this morning.
And Ray will be just a few minutes late.
Okay. We'll catch up to him when he shows up. Okay, oral communications. Do we have any oral communications from the public or from anybody in the schoolhouse this morning?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Making any progress on the participation of members by Zoom?
As far as I know, nothing. That's a town council subcommittee. We can ask Craig later, but as far as I know, nothing yet has been determined.
Thank you.
Any other oral communications? Okay, with that, I have one item. I would like to recognize that a former member of the EPC, Diana Coyne, Dr. Diana Coyne, passed away in August. Some of you may remember her. She served many years on the EPC. She passed away, and this committee should recognize her, and our condolences go out to her family. Okay, on to closing oral communications, review and approval of minutes, item number 4.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you all very much. Town report. We do not have our new town manager. I was told last night that he has a conflict this morning. Similarly, Howard couldn't make it this morning, but did fill me in on a couple of things. We're moving somewhat forward on the AM radio relocation. We'll probably talk about that a little bit when Ray gets here. At least preliminarily, there is a first week of October schedule for a scissor lift to install the high gain antenna. On the backup for town center, nothing yet going on there. And Ray shows up. Good morning, Ray, and welcome. High gain antenna with no problem. Okay, On to item number 6, the WPD ready, WPD cert report. Do we have either Selena or the chief here? They're not in the audience. Do I have them on Zoom? Yeah, Selena did include in her report an attachment. It looks like they are not here, reminding everybody a couple of things that Selena would bring up. This is Emergency Preparedness Month, so there's probably going to be a lot being pushed out by Selena and Woodside Fire. Number 2, last I heard, we are still going to have a test of SMC alert on September the 10th. That should be also well publicized, but everyone on this committee should make sure you're signed up to the new SMC alert, and there will be, I think it's going to be a district-wide test of SMC alert on September 10th.
You know the time of day?
I do not. Rob, are you aware of it? I think it was in the afternoon, early afternoon. I'm not sure about that. There'll be things coming out, and I will forward to this committee information as I get it. Yep. Okay, unless anybody else has anything for that item, we will move on to item number 7, the evacuation plan status. And I guess it is that the evacuation plan last we heard was going to be brought up at September 13th town council meeting. And Craig, would you like to give us a status as far as you know?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so Jeff and I submitted a colleague's memo for the 13th. So it'll get discussed at the council. And basically, we just talked about that there's a variety of things in that memo. Many of them are other jurisdiction responsibilities, and that we recommend to the council that Jeff and I continue to work with EPC to basically take the parts that the town's responsible for and figure out kind of what the next steps in terms of getting some action on those is. So that colleague's memo will be in the upcoming packet.
And so there will be no motion to accept the
It
evacuation plan?
won't be adopted. The recommendation is not to adopt it. That was the recommendation from the attorney. So, I mean, we publicized it, and yeah, I mean, you can read the colleagues memo, but basically the recommendation is that we continue to basically deal with the pieces that are the town's pieces. So, I mean, it's not a matter of accepting. I mean, we publicized, I mean, we followed what you guys asked. We publicized it. We wrote the mayor's letter. So, I mean, yeah, I'm open to feedback, and you can look at the colleagues memo that's written and submitted.
Where's that college memo available?
It's going to be in the package, so it'll come out on, Friday afternoon.
Okay, you think you could send it to us today? It'd be helpful to see for this meeting, but
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, let me check and see if I can send it to you. So yeah.
because that what you're describing here does not seem what was in alignment with our subcommittee meeting on what was that, the 14th?
I think it's the stuff we talked about at that meeting.
Well, I think the main thrust of that meeting was figuring out what language would be acceptable for this to be accepted by the town council. You had, I'm looking at your
mic.
sorry, I'm looking at your email from the 15th, and there were a number of items that you committed to as a follow-up for this, which was a staff report. We've asked multiple times now for the attorney's review of this in writing, and
Right,
it
right, but
continues to not
remember,
be provided.
right, but you can ask Randy, but I think it's up to the council to decide how to move this forward. So, and they're starting to feel like demands, and I don't think that's your intention, but we pay significant money to the attorney, and the question is, what do we need to get done? And so, what I heard clearly from Rob was it was important to get this information out. So we definitely made a big push to get that information out and get it out quickly, because that's what I heard is that was the critical function. This will get discussed at the council and the council can make a decision on what to do next. You're certainly welcome to come and say, we want an opinion from the attorney, and the council can make that decision. But I mean, I think that's the way this process works. It's not sort of EPC to say, here are the set of demands that you guys need to meet. It's, here's what we've done. And now we need to figure out the next step.
Craig, I categorically reject the framing that we have made. We made
No.
major, here, hear me out.
I didn't say you did. I said they're starting to sound like demands.
But they're not. We've clarified this. We worked hard and made major pushes with some very serious people and with the agency to complete a draft of the evacuation report with a bunch and plan with a bunch of caveats in mid-June. And what a good process would have been if you had helped us figure out how to streamline getting this accepted, working with the town council to get this in front of the town and because it has the support of the county Department of Emergency Management and the Woodside Fire District. So the obvious question comes like, why the 3-month delay? What are the concerns? What are the concerns you have? What are the concerns of other town council members? I mean, I think this should be a cautionary tale about a process, and it's to find that it's still obstructed. I mean, I was hoping we would be on the right track for the September 13th meeting, but to hear that we're not. I mean, this is a
Well, I think you
guess I
need
hadn't even
to,
prepared what to say for that.
it will go to the council, which is what we talked about doing, which is the right track. And to say that it's 3 months late, I mean, my involvement, I mean, I gave you guys comments. I still haven't actually heard full response to my comments. So no, just let me, now it's my turn to finish. So there is a process here, Randy, that is in progress. As we've talked about, the audience for this is somewhat muddled. It is, in my mind, 3 different documents. And so the council is going to need to figure out how to deal with a plan that's actually 3 different documents where many parts of the documents are other jurisdiction, other authorities, right? Because it has to do with law enforcement, it has to do with fire. So we're mostly, as the town, for those things, just responsible for supporting those agencies. Like that's our job. But in my mind, it still doesn't have, I still don't understand how the EOC, the fire department, law enforcement, et cetera. I mean, some of that's the stuff that I hope that we will get in this sort of, how do we make this actionable? Because those are the kind of, in my mind, the pieces that are still missing when we try to figure out in an emergency, do we understand how all these players play together? So I think we'll continue to have those discussions, but we have the information out there, which is what we committed to. So I think that part of it's done. And the other thing I've heard from you guys is we're exhausted, we're done, we don't want to deal with this anymore. So I kind of heard that. So I'm sort of in this odd situation of I'm very, very willing to, wow, the exit sign. Yeah, look out. I'm very willing to continue to work with you guys, but we need to continue to work together to figure out what we need to do here. And I don't know whether you guys want to continue to work on it because I haven't heard that.
We do. I can speak for myself personally that the response is that we're very demotivated by your support on this. And
I'm sorry to
especially
hear that.
after all of this hard work and there are and I think the role of liaison should be to help the committee get its hard work in front of the town and help bring it to fruition. We had the disappointment for me is the other work I wanted to do on top of this that has all been stalled and all been blocked. And that's important work in the fact that it's now into September, we haven't been able to do any of that work because we've been stuck on this. And the response that any individual town council member can agendize something, and the pathway to get this in front of the town council, especially after we approved it, should then allow all of the town council members as our elected leaders to give feedback.
And it's on the next meeting, Randy.
Context of what we provided, but for that to be happening 3 months later, and for you to have managed, you personally to have managed and controlled this whole process is is disappointing. And I think we do need to hold you accountable because you're our liaison, you're our elected representative, and we should be finding a streamlined path to get this work to fruition where it can really help the community, help improve safety. And that hasn't happened, and it's still not happening. So
Okay,
it's a
well,
big disappointment.
Okay, well, so you have an opinion. Thank you. It hasn't been 3 months, as you continue to characterize. We didn't have 2 meetings. There wasn't a place on the agenda. You've been involved in this. It's not like I haven't involved people. So I think you're characterizing this maybe out of frustration, maybe out of exhaustion. I don't know. But it's going to the council. You're welcome to speak your piece there. But this is the way this stuff works. And the idea that it's like, well, we got done and boom, like tomorrow we're expecting shit to get done. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. This is public government. And for better or worse, it is sort of set up to be a slow, deliberate process.
Look, I again, I have to object to that. You saying it doesn't work that way, that is by your choice. And I want to.
No, actually, it's not. I do not set the agenda. So you're just, I mean,
But look,
again,
Let's move on from this.
yeah, I was gonna say, can we
I
move
think
on?
The
I mean-
bottom line is, I think I can express that the committee is disappointed in this process. We were hoping we would get at least an acceptance, if not an approval. Some of us, I'm sure, will be there on the September 13th. We'll see what the colleagues' memo is.
Yep.
And then the EVAC committee, subcommittee will probably meet in the meantime to determine next steps.
Right. And when you say the committee, do you mean the subcommittee? Because so far I've heard from the subcommittee, and you guys have your particular agenda. And we've talked about acceptance, and I told you both in this last meeting with the committee and with the subcommittee that it was unlikely to be accepted, but that we would work through this stuff. And so really what I'm trying to understand here is, what is it that we're not getting done? Because the critical part to me, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see us get some action on the things that are important. And so I feel like we're having a process debate here rather than can we sit down and figure out what are the next important steps? So that's my frustration is it's like, again, and it feels like we need this accepted. Well, what does acceptance mean? One of the things we put in the colleagues memo is that we committed to the fire department to implement an evacuation plan. But what does that mean? Given that this evacuation plan as written has a lot of stuff that's the responsibility of the fire department and the sheriff's department. So what does it mean to do that? That's the stuff that we need to sort out if we're going to get to some notion of acceptance. So I feel like I'm continuing to try to work on this stuff. You guys feel like it's getting stonewalled. That's not my view of it at all. I feel like this is a critical thing that we need to get done, but it's critical that we understand what it is we're doing and what actions we can take. And I'm still a little unclear on some of the actions that we can take given this sort of multifaceted evacuation plan. So anyway, this will be at the 13th. So, and that was my commitment to get it on that council agenda. So it's on the agenda.
We present at the 13th and give us even a 8-minute.
You can ask the
10-minute
mayor.
slot.
I mean, it's the mayor's agenda. Again, this is not my agenda, just to be clear. So you can ask, and so you certainly
Five
have,
council members. You can.
no, at this point, the 13th agenda is set. You can ask the mayor. I think it's reasonable, but I can't just say, oh yeah, we can just give you that slot. That's not my place. The mayor is the chair of the council. So so all you have to do is ask. My guess is he'll say yes, but you need to ask him because that's his decision. You certainly have 3 minutes for sure. I mean, that's just public comment period, but I think it'd be reasonable for EPC if you want to do a small presentation, but I would ask him and make sure. And if he said, sure, then come prepared with it. That's an easy thing. Just, you guys can ask him. Okay?
Yeah, I think if Randy is going to present something and represent the EPC in that process, I'd like to know what it is that you're going to be presenting. Be sure that, at least I personally feel that that's the right approach.
I mean, I think we'd have to do it as a subcommittee.
Mhm.
I think we'd have to do it as a subcommittee. I don't think we'll be able to have another EPC special meeting before that. And could potentially do it as
Well, you
public
could still
comment.
share whatever
Sure,
it
sure.
is
No,
that you're
absolutely.
going to and
Yeah,
get
so
input from.
Yeah, sure. And I do that through, I mean, personally, I do that through the evacuation plan public Google Drive folder and the notes, the Craig's email from the 15th is in there. I just put it in there now. I haven't put the transcript of the other meeting. So I'm trying to keep detailed notes in a public folder. So.
Yeah, I think we all should remember that we've been without a town manager for months now. I don't know how many staff were down for new council and, you know, the efficiency of town government. I'm sorry to say for all of us, including the council, isn't what it should be. And it's going to take some time to get there. So I can appreciate there's probably a whole bunch of other committees or other people that want things done that are just not getting done in the same time frame that they might have a year ago or 2 years ago. So I'm sympathetic to the town is in a kind of a crisis mode in my view in trying to move things along. So
I have a slightly different view. If this town council has said safety is their number one priority, then it's associated with safety in the community ought to be number one, and other things ought to be five.
Yeah, and I disagree as well, and it's especially when you look at the wildfire preparedness committee, they're able to put out communications from Carrie Chin every week, and some of the actually there was a recent one on large animal evacuation, and so I think aside from this, before learning about your recommendation to the town council not to accept our evacuation plan, I wanted to bring up this as part of our communication and outreach subcommittee. Is we need to work with. I think it'd be great to figure out a way to work with the council where we could do the same, and we could start to put out the current evacuation plan, the parts of it that we feel like are most important in that method. But I got to say, it's you know, thinking about doing that given the response that we've had since June on this fulsome evacuation plan. It feels. I mean, I don't think it just feels that it's demonstrably.
Randy,
yeah.
we're beating a dead horse here. Okay, let's move on. Rob?
The question,
Dale, I'd like a moment whenever convenient.
Rob, and then we'll go to Chris. Rob?
Let me just make one short comment. We appreciate the mayor's letter. We appreciate the one posting that's been made. We worked very hard to try to get this out for this fire season. We weren't trying to jam this through. The purpose of this is for the residents to understand what will happen in the case of an evacuation so that they will be prepared and so that they will know what Woodside Fire is taking responsibility for, what the sheriff is taking responsibility for, what the county dam is taking responsibility for. The town council wants to take more time on this. They'll take more time on this, but I would appreciate for the benefit of the residents of the town, for their safety, that, and I use the word advisory. If you don't want to accept it, that's fine. But how about we don't just do one little posting here? How about if we try to say we're working on this plan, we will get a final plan out, but in the meantime, we advise that you read this and that you take this to heart. You know, this isn't the final thing, but we're down 4 people, whatever. We've been lucky so far this year. It has not been an overly hot year. We haven't had bad wind conditions. We're heading into that period of time where it could happen. I would certainly appreciate if you and the town council could make an effort to say, look, we're working on this, but in the meantime, take a look at this, read it, be prepared, be knowledgeable in this. You don't want to do that? Fine. You don't want to do it.
And
We weren't
so,
trying,
so
I'm not
the-
done. I
No,
gave you a chance to
no,
listen.
I was gonna ask, so I was working with you on this, like, so are you thinking of like another mayor's letter? Because I mean, that sounds very actionable to me. So, I mean, because I think that was our intent, is to get that information
So-
out.
Great. So
Yeah.
every week there's something done by the WPC, who seems to be the star child here. How about trying to put something out an evacuation plan. We're working on it hard. In the meantime, there's an advisory plan that we suggest you read so that you as a resident know what could happen and be as prepared as possible until we get out the final plan.
So why don't you guys write that? I mean, the reason the WPC gets these things out is they write these tips up. They go to the town manager, he looks at them, they say these reasonable, and they get published. I think that's reasonable. So I mean, I think what you're asking for, I mean, I thought we sort of were trying to get at that with the mayor's letter and putting it in the website, but if you feel like there's another post that would help, that seems reasonable.
Okay, can I ask for a motion? Can I ask?
I'd like to comment before we have any motions.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Yep. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so listening to this and not having participated on the subcommittee and as a member, even without voting privileges on this remote Zoom, sorry, couldn't resist putting that in there. Look, I appreciate the importance of what we're trying to do. I think it is critical. I think time pressure is a good thing, but it's clearly gotten very emotional, and the art of good governance is to find consensus. And I'm just afraid of a presentation to the council that sounds aggressive and might make them feel an attack. I heard Craig's words earlier that they're sort of feeling like we're making demands, and that my experience is that never leads to getting what it is we want. So I want to, the whole point of that, I want to second Jerry's recommendation. I think any kind of presentation that goes before the council that is supposed to represent the committee ought to be reviewed by this entire committee. And I think we ought to actually mandate that. I'm really worried about a small group of us working on something, making a presentation, because words and tone are so important when you're trying to get consensus. And I think a chance for this larger group to edit, set the tone, make sure we're all in agreement is really, really important.
How would you suggest we do that? Because it's on the 13th, we don't have time to notice a special meeting before that. That's the only way we could vote on it, Chris.
Well, I would suggest then we are not in a position to make a presentation that reflects the view of the entire committee. Because I don't hear consensus here on the importance of tone. And I think tone could be everything in our long-term success in getting this done.
I guess I could speak, Chris, if you're concerned about my tone in this, it is frustrating to hear about this outcome after our meeting with the mayor and Councilmember Taylor, along with all the leadership of Woodside Fire District. And I review again, having reviewed the follow-up email. This is a surprise and it's disappointing. So I'll try to reset and be constructive and take a problem-solving approach here, and again to build consensus. But I do think this really is a cautionary tale in terms of process, and in terms of the feedback of demands. I don't know if Councilmember Taylor is speaking for the mayor as well, but I believe that's just unfounded and also not constructive given the circumstances.
Greg, let me ask a point of clarification. If Randy puts up on a public website a presentation and then allows other committee members to edit, comment on that presentation, would that be a violation of the Brown Act?
Sounds like it to me, because it's going to be something that everybody's seeing everybody else's comments.
Yeah,
But it's a public document at the same time.
Yeah, but
you're trying to reach an agreement outside of
Outside
the
of-
official
exactly.
meeting where
Yep.
the public can provide input. So I think that's a Brown Act. I like Rob's suggestion,
Yeah.
here is the work in progress. We want the town to read it and understand it. Maybe you've got some ideas that we haven't thought about. some issues, but at the same time, anyone who wants to can sort of get a grasp of what is likely to be approved in some form or another by the council at some point in time. So I would very strongly encourage us, and I think we could do that today in a meeting, just sort of ask for that kind of communication to the town, I guess. I don't know that it needs to be to the council, it's to the town.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think if you as a committee or subcommittee, whatever, wrote up, a little blurb that you wanted, it would get reviewed by the town manager, maybe the mayor, and then it would get in the post. And I think that seems very appropriate. And I think coming from EPC, much like the WPC things come from the WPC, I think that sounds great.
Yeah. Work in progress,
But also to, put the color around it that Rob said of, we think it's important that you read it and here's why. And, that part's good. So, I would keep it reasonably short and succinct, but the general tone and approach seems right.
Okay, do we need to have a vote of the EPC to approve the verbiage of that to be posted?
I think we've already approved the subcommittee's, work here. So you're doing essentially an executive summary maybe, and then putting out whatever you did. So we've already, that's information we've already approved, I think.
So what I'm asking, Jerry, thank you, is to post something like that weekly on, say, the PV forum and on the town's website as the WPC is doing. Does the verbiage of that need to have the EPC's vote of approval? Or can that be done before the next EPC meeting?
Number one.
I think that's a choice we could make, right? We can, as a committee, vote to empower the subcommittee to just do that, or we could ask that it be reviewed.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification again, the WPC tips that go out are not approved by the full WPC. They are written up by one member, looked at by the chair, sent off to the town manager, and then sent out. So they're never approved by the full WPC.
But they're kind of tips on what you should do. They're not sort of a government process that's been approved. So they're different.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but I'm comfortable with the committee creating a summary that informs the public about how to read this document and how to understand that it is not approved, but a work in progress, but something that they should be aware of and start thinking about.
One of the recent WPC posts was about the new Woodside Fire District fire ordinances. And so that does, and there was, I think, some specific commentary about them. So that does start to touch, legislative issues. And does the mayor or do you review any of those posts before they go out?
The town manager does, and I think the mayor does as well.
Yeah, I would guess. Yeah. There's some. So I mean, the thing that could be helpful is to understand which parts of the evacuation plan the mayor, or I mean, really the town council would be comfortable putting out in that format.
You're going sideways again.
Okay.
Jerry, are you willing to put that in a motion?
Yeah, I would make a motion that the evacuation subcommittee prepare a summary document that outlines the key elements of the evacuation plan and include that with the working document and make that available to Carrie Chen and the communications through the town. And it could be put on the PB forum.
I'd like to, well, I guess I can't comment on that until it's approved.
Well, you can discuss it.
Okay,
It's a motion. If it gets a second, then
well, it seems that the tips are tidbits and the committee could put out tidbits rather than trying to summarize the whole thing and then again, put out the link for the whole document. It's already, the document, his link is already out there. Why not have tidbits, parts of the evacuation plan weekly to highlight people, so people aren't overpowered by the whole thing at once. I mean, a summary you've heard, but tidbits about, well, what's the step for this? What's the step for that? You know, the evacuation process is multifunctional. It's not just one massive thing.
You know, but I think both things could be done. I mean, could have the executive summaries I'm proposing along with the working document. And then subsequent to that, we could, through the committee or subcommittee, put out a series of tidbits that sort of breaks it up into more digestible pieces. I think that's a logical thing to do.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'd like to propose an amendment to that motion that it include that whatever gets submitted is reviewed by the chair.
On the subcommittee, so.
Dale's on the committee.
Who's on the committee? Okay, that's good enough. Well, I guess then specifically, I still want that included because if he's not present, the subcommittee could still finish its work. I specifically would like our chair to review it.
I would accept that amendment to my motion, which hasn't been seconded yet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any public comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Okay. We will now move on. Thank you, Craig. Okay, now on to something much lighter in tone. The town picnic, and Jerry Sheffron has graciously accepted the responsibility to coordinate since I will be out of pocket that day. We need to just check and see. I think it's like 10 to 3. Does anybody know the exact time? 10 to 2. Very good, right? Historically, it's been very simple. We'll have a booth that'll be next to the fire department and the WPV CERT ready booths. So could we share people and so on? Historically, we've been there. We have had, sometimes we've had a couple of poster boards. We certainly have our magnet handouts. We've handed out Vic's neighborhood plans. We could certainly hand out, you know, links to the evacuation study. As a matter of fact, we probably need to print up some more. I'll talk to you about that later. We printed up some cards with the QR code so they could get the AM radio on their phone. We could print up some cards with a QR code with a link to the evacuation plan. It's better than trying to print up, you know, a 70-page document to hand out. It's an opportunity for this committee to get out and talk to people in the community, talk to them about evacuation, about neighborhood watch, about fire, about PM radio, and raise their consciousness on everything that's there. So I think two things is how many folks can show up that day. Oh, good.
Great. After 12:30.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just mention, Rob Young was contacted by some people in Portola Valley about the Portola Valley Amateur Radio Group helping out with the Zots to Tots communications. And so some of us, like me, have said yes, so we'll be late.
Okay.
But so, you know, EPC is going to be involved there. We should get vested, you know, your emergency preparedness committee at work or something, you know.
Oh, nice.
Some sort of PR.
That would be good.
We should get yellow vests for sure.
And where are our labels? We have labels, I think, too.
Name
there.
tags, yes. Everybody should have their little name
Yeah.
tag. Right. But vests would be good. I will look into that. I will see if there's any chance we can get vests.
Yeah.
You know, just the little slip-on things.
I mean, I have my old SERP Yes.
If nothing else, maybe we can get a Velcro attachment for your search.
Rats
bag.
by now, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so Jerry, you saw a number of people who volunteered there. I'm gonna let you take over and see if you have questions.
Yeah, my first question is simply setting up the booth, the table and so on, chairs, whatever, who has that equipment?
That will all be set up the night before. That's Patty Booz and what committee is that? Is that the Parks and Rec group? So generally the tent is set up, table and chairs. If you have any question about how many chairs, how many tables, you can send her.
Okay, and the EPC banner, don't we have any, who has that?
I got that.
Ray, great, so I'll get it from you because you're gonna be late.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring the extra cards and static cling. I've got a fair number, so maybe some people who don't have one that I could give them. What other handouts might we have?
I'll bring the neighborhood plan, how to build a neighborhood back plan, the handouts that we prepared, the booklets. I'll bring those, and I think we have some stored together with some of the other materials.
We gave them all out. so
Oh,
you'll need
really?
them. Yeah,
Good. Okay, well,
yeah.
that's
We've slowly been giving them out.
good. Well, I still have a bunch of them.
Okay, good.
I'll make sure to bring them, Jerry.
Could you make a list? There's maybe a half a dozen or more of neighborhoods that are now organizing, so people can see that, you know, there is some activity going on. And if your neighborhood isn't, maybe you need to think
I
about stepping
can.
up.
I'm not sure the list will convey that message.
Well, you know,
But I will be happy
let's
to
do
that,
what we
Jerry.
can and see what we can get people to add.
I'll also bring a sign up sheet, which I do every time, of people, and I'll get some people to sign it in advance of those that are doing this, of those that are volunteering in their neighborhoods, and we'll have that available to people. We are picking up here and there individuals, particularly one group, Omagale School is really doing it, that are starting to get more involved.
Great.
Okay.
Could you have a map of the city, of Portola Valley, where these different zones are that are signed up?
That's a tough one. We're
Well-
we're still trying to figure that out very candidly.
Really?
I'm not sure I can prepare that before, but we certainly can try.
I just want to, I think it's so important that neighborhoods organize. We're way behind where any of us would like to be at this point. So any way we can poke the bear to get some action would be nice.
Jerry, as you know, I've really worked at this for the last almost a year. Until we identify leaders in those communities who are willing to take charge and run them, it's just extremely frustrating, difficult. We have to look for those stars.
Well, maybe they'll be at the picnic, so we can work
Exactly.
on it.
Keep trying.
Okay, and Jerry, I will get to you. I've got some magnets. And I will talk to Carrie about making a QR code with a link to the evac plan. Okay, any other questions, Jerry?
No.
Good, okay. And so folks, 10 to 2 and whoever can be there would be great, as long as you stay. Okay, on to item number 9, and we're gonna run over a little bit today. Hopefully people won't mind too much. Ray, this is your item. Go ahead.
Real quick status. We got the AM radio relocated to town hall, plugged in. We had some technical things we had to fix along the way. And I have submitted to our vendor all the necessary information to get the license transferred from 56 Granada to 765 Portola Road. That's in process. It cost about $300. Put it on my credit card. I am ready because I have made it as simple as possible to drill 6 holes in the mast so we can put the new antenna, the high gain antenna on that unit. 6 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Strap it to the mast, drill the hole, strap on the antenna. I've heard nothing from Howard. Got in this room last month. It's cost about $700 to rent a scissor jack. They even found a place in San Jose that'll deliver it here. I've heard nothing. So wait. Patient.
Why don't you get,
I did talk to Howard last night. He said he is reviewing, sending the information. So he's got to review it as town engineer. It's in process. We can poke him again. I know that Craig sent a memo saying to schedule first week of October. So I hope that's on schedule. I hope that's the plan. We will poke Howard again to actually do it the first week of September. The $1,000 has already been approved by this committee. October, I'm sorry. So first week of October. This committee has already approved the cost for the scissor lift. And the one thing I would like is Ray, if you could make a motion to reimburse you for the license transfer fee. Okay. Okay. Okay, that. Okay. Yeah.
your mic is up there and you're talking about it.
You want a separate thing.
I
Tell you
would-
what, here's the motion. I will need a signature from town manager, whoever the authority is on the FCC license application. So I need to get that done. So everybody in favor of moving the antenna and getting the FCC license? Okay.
And amending
paying for
that.
it and reimbursing
approving
me for it.
Up to $1,000.
Okay, yeah, let's just be
For
smart.
FCC license.
I so
And
move.
Second.
Second, done.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Done.
I also like, just like to note in good and welfare, thank Ray for the communications he's made to the community about what we are doing with respect to communications. This was a real, at our last picnic or last session, a lot of questions that indicated our residents are not aware of all this work. Ray's put some really good emails together that got out of the forum in various other ways. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback and comfort expressed to know that as much has been done by the committee, and Ray's really did a nice job on that. So thank you for that.
It was your idea, Vic, so thank you.
Yeah, kudos to Ray. Thanks, Ray. That was very good. And I think as we move forward on the COM subcommittee, that's another thing we could, again, highlight in tips. The communications, work, maybe each week, highlight one leg of the communications that is being done.
Just real quick, is that the sort of document that there should be a link on in the emergency piece of the town website that people can pull down?
Yes.
If I send that to Carrie, I don't know how stuff happens on the website.
Yeah, send it to Carrie and see if she can get a link there. If we
And I'll
can get a
CC
response.
Howard too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Ray. Anything else? You want to talk briefly about the radio work that you're doing for the Tots to Tots here?
Oh, okay. That was in conjunction with the town picnic. So we've, through Rob, the request was made. They're gonna, have to have people at all the units from about 9 to 11, is what they told me. And, you get lots of ham radio clubs around the area do this. San Mateo County Sheriff's Auxiliary does this. Scary's does this. We've never done it before. We never had enough people to do it before. So I think we can do it this time with, 3 or 4 of us with some radio experience. I have enough radios on hand to staff 10 people. And we'll use the GMRS repeater thing. more to follow. People are asking for details. I don't have them yet, but Ed Holland is the guy that's, why are you smiling? Oh, okay. Oh, Rob's happy. So that's it. And I'll put out, I personally think it's a great use of little skills, a little practice. How do we do this? When you're setting up a tent, Jerry, we should have a radio down there and you all can listen to the traffic.
Exactly. What, are you using PV1 or?
Yeah, we use PV1. Yeah.
Remember, we still have all those radios in the comm room too.
Well, they're not on GMRS.
Oh, they're not.
No, they're a separate channel that the town owns. But anyway, we've got a lot of radios.
Yeah.
And Mark Donlin at WPV Cert volunteered. He says we've got a dozen radios you can use too. So
Okay, great. Thank you. On to the next item.
Real quick, I had something on the communications. I meant to actually email you about this before, but I just emailed Don yesterday on the same system, the specific area message encoding, and I was wondering if you or anyone else from the committee had any feedback on this, because this is a way to send out alerts. Is that a weather radio? This is a weather radio, so I ended up buying 2 of them. So one of the biggest concerns I've heard, especially now after Maui, is how can alerts go out if power and cell is down? And so and I just stumbled on this research actually on ChatGPT. It mentioned this. So this is a way for radios that are equipped with this technology to receive the alerts. The first one I bought cost $35 and was really easy to program. You program it just with the specific codes for the counties. And I program in Santa Clara, San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and San Francisco. But I didn't realize that this one doesn't have AM. It does have a battery backup. I think all of these have battery backup. So I bought a $70 one that does have AM radio. And the idea would be, in the middle of the night, if there's a terrible incident, power's out, cells out, that the authorities could send out this alert. This will sound really loudly in your home, has a low chance of, I think, a false alarm. And then you can just pull it out, take it with you, and listen to the
these are like those emergency broadcast system things we used to see on Saturday morning. Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is a more obscure system that's typically for other types of alerts.
I get a lot of questions about the weather radio. People ask if it can tune the stuff around here.
Have you checked a while ago when we checked? I didn't think our fire department can't access it. It has to be countywide.
They do. I checked. Selena responded, and she knows about this, and they do have the capability to send out these alerts. So I'm going to follow up with her and see what the procedure, and maybe we can even incorporate this into a test in the future.
That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah. I was imagining there's some history to it. Yeah, that's what happened in Maui. The authorities decided not to use the sirens, and when it's life or death, it's better to notify the whole county if there's an urgent evacuation. But this is the kind of discussion we could have: trade-offs between both false alarms and broader coverage versus life-saving potential. Yeah. Thanks for the background on that.
Okay, on to item number 10. We don't have any new information here. I don't think the town council has taken this item up. I did send a memo to all of the town council members after our last meeting. I also spoke at one of the town council meetings to bring it up. I would recommend that everybody who is interested send a letter to your favorite town councilman and suggest they reinstate the $5,000 to Epic. I think they mentioned that there will be a mid-year review of the budget. That might be the appropriate time, but I think everybody ought to talk to their town council members as often as possible. Any other comments? Have any public comment? I guess I skipped public comment on the AM radio relocation. Any public comment, any thoughts out there?
You know, on the Epic donation, it's my understanding that the town manager has a $5,000 approval authority. And once he gets settled, you know, my suspicion is he's putting out, you know, forest fires right now, but at some point, he would be approachable and he could actually approve this without even having to go through a town council if we could present the argument clearly enough for him to understand the pros and cons of it.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
No, he can't hear you. Chris can't hear you.
I'm not.
No, I was just saying, when it came to the council back in May or whenever it was, I mean, the request was to Epic to basically just give us a little, like, here's what we do. Here's what we're gonna do with your money. You know, we've got these plans. Here's what we did last year. And it can be something fairly brief, but that was the goal, was just to get a short blurb. Because all the other ones we were doing that night, we had something from them. And this was just an email from Joe saying, you know, just give us $5,000. So that was just sort of a good governance thing. So that was the other thing. If you want to lobby, just ask them to get that together. And I talked to Selena about it right afterwards, and she said they were going to do it. So, I mean, that was my assumption that it's coming.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11, this goes back to Ray on his emergency communications memo that he created and sent out. Thank you again, Ray. And I think we should take that memo and work a little harder to get it more often, maybe send it off to the comm subcommittee and put out some tips. Are you gonna send an email to Carrie? Send an email to Carrie, see if we can get it linked on the,
I'll work that. Also, I mean, it's long because it captures a lot of history, but if you're not interested in all that, just, there should be a one-page summary.
Yeah.
People can laminate and.
yeah,
you know, a lot of support
this
there.
might also be another thing that we can have a QR code
Yeah,
to a link
right.
to hand out at the picnic. Okay. Okay, good job. Thanks, Ray. Items 12 and 13, these are two items that have been languishing on our agenda. I thought I would have some time to do these. I just don't, to be quite honest, for the next month or so. Somehow on backup power for wireless base stations, I've gone round and around with Howard on this. Jeremy used to make 2 or 3 phone calls every year in the spring when I'd ask him to, and verify that the wireless carriers had power backup for the fire season. Howard can't find any phone numbers. The planning department can't find any phone numbers. And so it was left to me to try and find it. I just haven't had the time, to be quite honest. So either 2 items. Either we just drop it from the agenda, or if there's an ad hoc group of folks who would like to try and take this on and find a contact number at the wireless carriers in Portola Valley that will actually tell you whether they are acceding to the law and have 72 hours worth of battery backup, or whether they're going to bring in portable generators during fire season. And the same thing goes for the AM radio signs. This committee 3 years ago recommended that we put signs at the entrance to town about the AM radio so that visitors, transients, people hiking would say, oh, in emergency, I can turn to 1680 and figure out what's going on. This is language that went into a dark hole because our liaison said, well, we need something to take to the other committees to get approval. And Ray sent some examples, I sent some examples, and that went nowhere. So we need someone to actually draft up a memo to send to our liaison, which then can be sent to the ASCC apparently, who has oversight over signs. So again, 2 items right here, unless we can get an ad hoc committee of a couple of volunteers to work these items, I will just drop them from the agenda and maybe take them up next year under the next chair. So do we have any volunteers for item number 12?
I'll help and someone else will chair it. I will not chair it.
I'll work with Bud on that.
Okay. Jerry, I can tell you what I have done.
Okay.
And what I have failed at.
That's always good to know.
And then you can go from there. Thank you very much, Jerry. And then on the AM radio signs, this one isn't too hard. Ray has gotten a bunch of information from a vendor. I created a couple of things that I pulled up. So if someone would just be willing to take some time and create a memo with some recommendations of signs to send off to Craig Taylor to take the ASCC, I would appreciate it. Any volunteers here?
Hey, Dick,
Excellent.
Lynn, if you need help, I'll help you. Okay. All right. Count me in.
The
Okay.
vendor who provided our equipment for the AM radio has a whole web page on it. He provides these, obviously, it would be a natural thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Ray, you have some information.
Yeah,
You
I'll forward it.
forward it to them. I will forward the information I have. All you guys need to do is draft a memo, some nice pictures. Yeah. Again, I'm going to get on my high horse and I say that safety trumps other concerns. So anyway, thank you all. I really appreciate it. Now, on to item number 14. The Hawthorne's parking plan, and just a little bit of background here. I got an email from a couple of different residents and nothing written so far, but certainly at meetings and hikes and so on, the Hawthorne's, as you may or may not know, is going to start opening up this additional piece of land that Mid-Peninsula acquired over here across from the Roberts and farther on down to the public. And as a result of that, they are going to be creating a couple of parking lots, at least one, maybe 2, I heard recently. And one of the people that reached out to me is Karen Botter, who is here this morning, who is on a subcommittee created by Mid-Peninsula for public input here. And the reason that folks have reached out to me is that there certainly is going to be an impact on evacuation and fire safety, depending on where they put these parking lots. So the question that I have for this committee, this August committee, is whether this is something that this committee wants to weigh in on and get involved in. And if so, should it be part of the evac subcommittee, or should we create an additional committee to investigate and coordinate? And so first I'm going to take, questions of the committee, and then I'll open it up to public discussion where I think Karen probably would like to give her 2 cents. Any questions, thoughts? We'll have the final discussion here in a minute from the committee on this item.
Do you have any idea how big the parking lots will be?
I think I heard or read it's 2 with parking spaces for 40 vehicles each.
How does that compare with Mid-Penn's parking lot off of Windy Hill?
That parking lot, I think, is about 100 spaces. But the issue is, I think, is that if you add two parking lots of 40 vehicles each, both of them dumping onto Alpine Road, and there is an instant, whether you have traffic control or something, it could be, it could have an effect on evacuation.
Do we know that if there's another option as to where those parking lots could exit? Can they exit on Raspadero or somewhere else? I don't know how far the property goes.
That's a good question, and I think we are preliminary, and I think the objective here would be to have either an ad hoc group or the evac group participate in these discussions. I think it might be early enough to influence the placement of these parking lots, but I'm not sure.
They definitely, the property actually does go to Raspadero Road.
Yes, it does. Rob?
But not Raspadero.
Over a year ago, we did the traffic study. Okay, and since that period of time, there have been numerous areas that have been brought up that were not included in that traffic study. Obviously, Alpine Hills, also Zots, now this. Those were never included in the initial traffic study. And I would assume, maybe I'm wrong here, but I would assume that the major concern would be what impact this would have and what type of controls would be necessary if an emergency evacuation had to happen. And so the town has paid for a seat on a traffic analysis program. Ladris, Woodside Fire Hazard, so does Woodside Town. I'm not sure if people are concerned about the traffic or if they're concerned about the aesthetics of where it is. But if we're worried about the traffic, it's a bigger issue. And, you know, the original traffic study that was done was, people worked hard on that. But it is just an initial traffic study. It's not up to date, and there's more that needs to be done on it. And so, help me out here. Is this traffic study and evacuation, or is this aesthetics?
I think the concern that residents raise to me is more about safety. I mean, aesthetics is a separate issue, and I'm sure lots of people will raise issues about parking near this committee in particular. If we got involved, it would have to do with safety.
So is this really a discussion between how our town government wants to interact with a separate agency? Because if so, I would have thought that town government would, entertain a discussion with the other agency and make sure that the town's needs are represented in that discussion. Am I missing something?
I think the answer to that is somewhat yes, but it's also this committee, we could surface the issue, work on the issue, and then bring it to either the town council or the town manager with a recommendation. I mean, they like everything, they can choose to ignore our recommendation or have separate discussions, but at least this committee could weigh in.
It seems then that the subcommittee, which has the most knowledge about the evacuation plan, might want to just put a memo together to the new town manager about concerns around evacuation, depending on placement of the parking lots for this area. I don't know.
So the only thing that I worry about doing something like that is that I don't think that there's any knowledge base. There's no, I'm an engineer, forgive me. There's no proof of one way or the other what the effect would be. And I think that we should do more. I mean, a lot of people brought up the issue of Zots. And, especially Raspadero and Alpine. The only thing, the reason I brought that up is that it's a bigger fish to fry here. And if we're gonna do it right, it's a significant effort. I think we all have concerns and fears, but to really do it right, we would need significant amount of time to dig in on it. That's just my personal feeling. I don't have any proof.
Okay. Karen? Go ahead and let Karen talk. First, you could probably relay some of this information. better
Yeah,
than I.
hi, Karen Batra. I'm a official member of the POG, which is Public Access Working Group for Mid-Penn for the Hawthorns. And let me just clarify. Okay, let me just clarify some of the process questions and the reason that it's important to think about this now. So what our group is trying to do is create and try to solve various needs of what Hawthorne should be in terms of who should be able to use it, bicyclists, how does it interfere with, or how does it interact with our trail systems? Where should the parking be? There's lots and lots of questions. So they're all on the table, and the process will be for our group to figure it out first, and then by February, make a recommendation to the Mid-Penn board. Okay, and then after the Mid-Penn board goes through their plan, it goes through CEQA, then it finally comes to the town. So it'll be like a year or whatever. I'm not being accurate in details before official town committees, planning commission, town council will see this. But I'm trying to get ahead of this. I'm trying to get ahead of understanding what all the residents can think about this in terms of evacuation, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of everything. That's why I'm showing up to different committees and asking these questions so that we can, before anything's even really drawn up in any detail, we can say, oh, wait a minute, that parking won't make sense there because of these different reasons. So, in any kind of business, the more you think about the problems ahead of time, then you don't end up going down the wrong direction and trying to course correct. So that's sort of the background. So it's not a Rastadero, it's Los Tranquilos Road. So there's a very good document on the Mid-Penn side about Hawthorns. And that's the initial background thing. But it wasn't until our first on-site meeting a couple of weeks ago where they said, oh, we want to put parking along Alpine and we want to make a new road and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So they haven't decided at all where the parking is, but we have a chance to influence them and to think about it as a community, where we want it, where we want the access. And it was very interesting to speak to their designers in terms of how many parking spaces you put in a preserve dictates how much usage happens. So if you restrict it, you'll have less usage. If you have a giant parking lot, you'll have a lot of usage. I mean, there's some correlations and some of that's not accurate. My concern about putting it on Alpine and right by the road is I think there's going to be overflow parking there. It's not so much for traffic evacuation, even though that would be influenced. I'm more concerned about having people park along Alpine to go for a quick walk with their dog. They live in Palo Alto, maybe they show up 3 times a week and go for a walk. And so instead of bothering to go up to some parking lot or the parking lot's full, they go, oh, I'll just park here on Alpine, there's plenty of space. And then a wildfire evacuates, then we get this car stuck on Alpine. And we all know the impact when cars are stuck, and then it impedes an evacuation. That was more what I was thinking in terms of evacuation. And I also don't really want the overflow on the local streets. If the parking lot's right there, there's trail access right there, then Naphorst and Hillbrook and Firethorn, it'll just be crowded there with overflow parking. So that's kind of the general thing.
The overflow parking might be in Robert's parking lot too.
That may not be as much of an issue if the business wants to encourage business. And I'm not sure, because they did allow us to park there during the meeting. So there might be some synergy there, because they would want hikers to show up and grab a sandwich. So I'm not speaking for Roberts, but that's different than having it in the neighborhood. And also in terms of safety, which is more of a BPTS thing, probably, wherever people park, if they are parking at Roberts, you really do want them to use the crosswalk at Portola and Alpine and not be, it's hard to cross Alpine on foot there. I've tried to do it a million times. It's just not the safest thing. So I don't really want to see, groups of people or kids trying to cross in the middle, where they were suggesting the parking. So that's just an overview. I'm happy to answer it.
How big were the parking lots planned?
They don't really know.
Oh, they don't.
We're very early, but I just think that if we think this through, we can.
So
decide it.
someone else, I think, called me and said, oh my God, they're gonna build 2 40-place parking lots. Is that
Not
right?
that I know of.
Okay.
Patra? Yeah. It's the Public Access Working Group, or POG for short, PAWG. It's part of the Mid-Peninsula Open Space. Hawthorne's, yeah.
I have a question, and maybe for you or for Craig, but once the Mid-Penn makes their decision and has their architectural drawings and so on, who is the approval authority?
Then it comes to the town, then it comes to the planning commission. So we,
So the town of Portola Valley would have to approve what you do. Is that a fair statement?
absolutely,
Well, I think if that's true, which I hope it is, then I think you're really correct. Getting us involved early
yes.
makes sense. I just don't know how the town wants to be involved in the process. Do they want to delegate us because we have had a evacuation subcommittee? Do they have some other way that they want to interact with Mid-Penn? So I think, Craig, that's really something that the council should, and the town manager, decide just how this relationship should develop over the next year. I mean, we can beat this around forever, but it's really kind of not our decision making.
Well,
Let me
correct that, the committee could take it upon ourselves. We can weigh in on anything.
Yeah, we can weigh in on, but we aren't decision makers. So
That's correct.
I would just like to know how the town wants to handle.
Let me just, and I'll get hand over. Yeah. I just wanted, there's 12 people on this voting group and 2 people actually live in town. 2 people live in Los Trancos, but I just want input. I want other people to think about this. It's a hard decision. So as many brains as I can get on, whether it's formally through you guys or other people that I've been talking to in town, it just helps to create the better plan. That's all I'm really looking for. And if it's formal or informal.
So I will bring it up at the next council meeting in the liaison report, just say that this thing is happening. We won't take any action in terms of recommendation on how to deal with it. The other thing I'd recommend is that you just invite Karen back whenever she has more information. Because I think it would be useful for this committee to keep their thumb on the evacuation, the safety evacuation part of it. That seems very appropriate. But I will mention at the next council meeting, so at least it's, on the general radar.
Let me clarify one thing. I'm more than happy to participate, but the Mid-Penn has a very strict interpretation of Brown Act. It's extreme. I can only talk about it if it's agendized. So as long as it's agendized, I can show up. It's probably not legally, it's legally too much, but I'm just going to follow their rules.
So in other words, if it's not on our agenda, you can't speak about it?
I can't speak about it at all. I cannot even make a public comment about it in any meeting. So that's why I've been relatively quiet.
Yeah.
Or just keep it permanently on the agenda.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there any difficulty you interacting with members of the evacuation subcommittee?
Oh, absolutely not. I can interact with any member of the public at any point.
So at this point, I think I would accept a motion that we refer this to the evacuation subcommittee, at least to take a look and keep our finger involved.
I second that.
I just wanted to make a real quick comment if I
Yeah.
could. And that's, I was just thinking, and excuse me, I'm very new to the committee. So I was just thinking maybe a little bit too much like an engineer, which I am trained as, but don't practice too much of. Anyway, it just struck me that this might be kind of an iterative kind of thing, because as the Hawthorne, this thing is being developed,
they're looking at size of the parking lots and where they are. And of course, that interacts then with the evacuation. So I was just thinking that, you know, we have, I guess, a study that was done by a vendor. In the interim, could we ask that vendor how much work is involved iterating on their previous work? And just getting an idea of, well, what are we talking about as far as cost and scope? And is it even possible to take the old study and iterate on it? That's just, and those are just comments.
I think it would be easier to use the Ladris tool because the last evacuation study, it's a static model.
Okay.
Okay. They take lots of input, they spit the input in and they get one output. The Ladris, and that was cost the town $65,000.
Wow. Okay.
The Ladris, which is an interactive dynamic model, which we have a seat in, is costing us, that seat is $6,500 for this year. Now the price will probably go up next year if we want to own that seat, but I know Woodside Fire has a seat and I know Woodside has a seat. So this is the side, has nothing to do with how we evaluate it, but who we're going to evaluate that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
But one comment is that right now, nobody's using that software.
They understand.
And so if anybody has curiosity, it's a very quick iterative process and it's a graphical, it's very well organized. Somebody on this committee has time and has interest.
I understand the suggestion.
It would be really, really wonderful, especially somebody that might have an engineering mind.
Yeah. I would dearly love to have someone else learn how to use Ladris.
Well, at great peril, I'll investigate a little further and get back to you.
Excellent. I love that.
You know, I think we have a little of a little chicken and the egg here in question of who's on first. And it seems like Mid-Penn is on first. We're not going to sit here and design your parking for you. So we just want you to know that we're going to be very interested in whatever you come up with. And along the way, you should, you know, reach out to us with your thinking so we can provide some input, just as Craig will through the council. But I mean, it's not for our committee to get into it, you know, up to our ears when we don't know what Mid-Penn wants to do yet.
Thanks so much, Karen, for bringing this to our attention. And I think it's a great opportunity to, as a prelude to the Hawthorne's situation, which sounds like it's some time off, to review the situation around parking on Windy Hill and how that intersects with emergency response and evacuation. I mean, there's both this lot here on Portola, and usage increased a lot during the pandemic. I see that where I live at the corner of Alpine and Willowbrook with that entrance, and the overflow parking sometimes goes halfway down Willowbrook and has infuriated some residents because it ends up being on both sides.
And
yeah,
I know that BPS been dealing with that for years.
Yeah. Yeah, the enforcement is sort of a bit
So
unclear.
there's a motion on the floor. We have a second.
Can you repeat the motion? Just
The motion was that we're going to refer this to the evacuation subcommittee to just keep interface with Karen and see if we need to bring it back to the full committee for any recommendation. Exactly where to go. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Yep.
Just got the estimate from the vendor for the license. It's all in $2,000. So if I could amend that number 9, yeah, it's $1,700 of engineering and $300 for the FCC. Yeah. Okay, what they do. Anyway, we had passed it for 1,000. It'd be great if we could do it for 2.
so you need a motion to increase it to 2,000.
That would be great. Yeah.
So I would make a motion to increase the stipend to $2,000 to cover the transfer of the.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. That passes. Thank you very much, Ray. Okay, we're done with item 14. Item 15, anything on subcommittee reports that we haven't already covered? Hearing none, we will go on to our adjournment. Our next meeting is October the 5th. Can't make it, please let me know. Upcoming is the town picnic. Jerry is sharing that effort. Thank you. Okay, that's it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you all very much. ERA.